Hello YouTube, this is Billy Sixization on an Airsoft gun spring mod. Now what we have today is the G&G AK-74U that I had custom made from Airsoft GI. Ran me about like $200. What they did was they put a high-speed motor in it and a bigger piston, and then the rest was custom made, you know, all the grips and everything and the collapsible stock. So I want to get back on the modification that you will be able to do with your airsoft gun. Very simple. Oh yeah, wait. I forgot to mention that my gun is short stroked, so this makes it a little bit easier. What I did was I took the gearbox apart and I took the spring guide out, measured the diameter of the spring guide, and what I did was I took a couple of washers, like about 5 washers, probably about like an 1/8 inch thick, and I put them on the spring guide sitting at the back of the gearbox. So I reassembled it and put the spring back on it, and it actually pushed the spring up further, so it's giving you more FPS. Like before I did this, the gun was shooting like about 350 to like 360 with .20 BBs, and I just got done with the chronograph, and now it's shooting 410 to 420 in that range. It's pretty good. It's very simple to do. Just make sure the washers will fit inside your piston, where the spring goes into the piston. Make sure your washers will fit inside there. They should be like this, about the same diameter as the spring, maybe a little smaller, but you can get them at like any hardware store. Just take apart your gun, you know, bring your parts with you, make sure the washers fit inside the piston or are the same diameter as the spring, and make sure they fit over the spring guide. And what you do is you put it all back together with the washers in it, and very simple mod. You know, it doesn't cost that much. It's better than going out and buying a brand new spring for your airsoft gun off of the website, which I didn't want to do that because I already spent enough money on this gun. So it's a cheap way to make it shoot better, shoot a little harder. Like, I don't know, it depends on the thickness of your washer. Each washer could make the gun go up 1 to like 5 FPS. Depends on how thick your washer is. And I have 5 of them in there, and they're an 1/8 inch thick. So about like 350 to 360 up to 410 to 420. That's really good. Like, that's a big jump in FPS, and it's very cheap. Like, one washer is like 25 cents. So it's a really good modification to your gun if you don't want to go out and spend who knows how much money for another spring. You can get them at, like, the springs, you can get them at Home Depot. They make like different strengths and stuff, and it's still a lot cheaper than if you buy one online. And the springs last a long time because they're stainless steel, and they're guaranteed not to shrink, like, you know, decompress or get smaller as they're working in whatever you put them in. But, you know, I didn't feel like spending $5 for another spring when I could spend 25 cents for a washer. You know, so I just put 5 washers in, an 1/8 inch thick, same diameter as my spring, and the same diameter, you know, the inside of the washer as the hole, you know, the same diameter as the spring guide. So it pushes the spring forward a little bit more. But the gun is short stroke, so that's why I was losing FPS. But it still shoots about the same rounds per minute, whatever the hell it is. I think it was like I don't know, like 25 rounds per second, somewhere around there. It's very, it's very cost effective. It's very good to do. Very simple, Just make sure that the washers are the same diameter as the spring and the same diameter as the spring guide. So they're going to be about, the same thickness as the little coils on the spring, but it's going to give that spring an extra length and push it forward a little more to get more FPS. It'll stiffen the spring up. You could do it with any airsoft gun. You can go to Dick's and buy a cheap one and do it. You'll increase your FPS. It's very simple. Like I said before, you can buy the shittiest airsoft gun and do this and bring the FPS up more because you're not stretching the spring. When you stretch it, it weakens it and it'll just decompress. It won't last as long. But when you put washers in it, the spring is staying the same. It's not decompressing, it's not stretching out, and it's not getting weak from you stretching the spring. So every time you want to go stretch it, you have to take the gun apart, stretch it, put it back in. It's only going to last like a magazine, and it's going to go back to the same, and it will eventually get weaker. Like I said, you can buy it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Ed's Hardware, the washers, wherever they sell washers. You could buy it. Just measure the diameter of the spring and pick them up, put them in the gun, make sure they're like at least an 1/8 inch thick. If they're not, the washers will crack under the pressure of the spring. Because the washers, they're not, the ones that they sell that are very small, they're not steel, they're aluminum. So they will probably crack. I had it happen to me before, where I brought thinner washers. But the 1/8 inch seems to work good for me, so I have 5 of them in there. And the gun's shooting really fast, like it should. I have 11.1 LiPo battery in it. Yeah, the gun was LiPo ready when I brought it, but it's just ridiculously fast. Here, one last look at the gun. It's pretty legit. The slide comes back, and your hop up is in here, and you got the battery up in there. I have I don't know what inch the barrel is, but it's a tight bore, 6.1 millimeter. So it gives that BB the extra push out the barrel. And it's got like something I've never seen before, a BAX, whatever the fuck it is, or whatever the hell they call it, accuracy shooting system, but it has adjustable hop up. Like, I don't know how it does it, but I guess it brings the 2 rubber pieces down and brings them up, and it keeps the BB straight. I could sit there and shoot, like if I mounted this gun in like a harness and just had the trigger held down, it would shoot in the same hole. Give or take those defective BBs that fly a little bit to the left or right, but it was shooting in the same hole over and over again. That's how accurate this gun is. I was probably at like 50 feet, and it was shooting the same. It's really good. But like I said, the spring mod is not expensive at all. It's very cheap. Anybody could do it if you're good at taking gearboxes apart and taking the springs out of them. But if you're not, I suggest you have somebody that's good at that stuff do it, because I'm not reliable if you screw your gun up. But, you learn from your mistakes. So if you want to go ahead and attempt it, buy a cheap airsoft gun. Because everything inside the cheap airsoft gun is almost exactly the same as in an expensive one. But in a cheap airsoft gun, an electric AEG, there's no tabbeth plate. The tabbeth plate is the little nozzle that comes back when the motor makes the piston and the spring come back. The tabbeth plate comes back, and then before the piston is released forward, the tabbeth plate is shot forward, and then the piston comes and pushes the BB out. That's what the tabbeth plate is. That's the only difference between a cheap one and a really good airsoft gun, is the cheap ones don't have a tab with plate. So I suggest you like watch some videos on YouTube how to take a good airsoft gun apart, because they'll show you all the little pieces. They have like little shims and stuff in there. But if you want to attempt it yourself without watching any videos, just go out and buy a cheap one, probably like about $40 one. And it don't matter if you fuck it up, because you can just bring it back anyway. Just put it back together and bring it back. But, that's how I learned how to take them apart, is using a cheap one. And then I got inside of a really good one with metal gearbox and steel gears. And it's very simple. The only thing that's a pain in the ass is putting the anti-reversal latch back in. That's a pain in the ass. But anyway, this mod was very inexpensive. And I just thought of it, like a few days ago. I'm like, well, how can I make this gun stronger? I'm not going to go out and buy a new spring. And I'm not going to stretch it. Oh, let me put washers in it. So I put the washers in, and it works really good. Believe me. If you guys want to, like, post a video, or, like, leave your video down in the comments, or I don't know how you do it, like, with a video response and you guys doing it, because I want to see what other guns work for it. Like, what other guns are capable of doing the mod. Like, even the cheap ones. Like, I did it with a cheap AK-47 that I brought from Dick's. But if you guys have other cheap ones, I want to know how you do it. And if it works for other guns. And if it does, I'll try it on my KWA M4. Because I haven't taken that apart yet. So, just leave a video response on how you guys did it. And this is Billy Sixes Asian signing off.